Hello, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us live today. We are thrilled to have you with us. Whether you're tuning in from work, home, or somewhere in between, thank you for making the time. Today's session revolves around a theme that is not only timely, but also deeply relevant in the current business landscape: innovation at scale in India GCCs. For those who may be new to this, innovation continues to be one of the most defining categories of the NASSCOM GCC Awards. And we have been honored to collaborate with NASSCOM in leading this initiative on their behalf for the third consecutive edition, the latest one, which was concluded in April 2025. Now, this session also marks the kickoff of a special series where we spotlight the journeys of award winning GCCs. We're excited to host a panel of leaders today who bring first hand experience, uh, have had to get a lot of insights based on a lot of deliberations internally with respect to their innovation initiatives, and who are willing to share bold perspectives on what's truly working and what's not when it comes to innovation. For those who don't know me, I'm Nikhil Malhotra, Vice President at Everest Group. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to work closely with GCCs, enterprise stakeholders, and innovation leaders, and have been partnering with NASSCOM in orchestrating the GCC awards in both 2023 and 2025. Uh, I can say that today, what we're going to discuss is going to be reflective of real on ground impact of innovation if and when done right. Uh, Before we dive into the discussion, we just want to warm up things for those watching us live today. In the comments, tell us where you are joining us from and what's one innovation or change you have seen in your workplace or industry in the last 12 months that really made a difference. Again, could be big, could be small. Sometimes it's the smallest tweaks that create the biggest ripple, right? And again, we'll pull up a few of your questions during the session or towards the end, so also keep them coming. With that, let's get started. I'm gonna let our panelists introduce themselves before we dive into the key themes. So, not starting in a particular order, but what I can see on my screen first. Vaibhav.
Hey, thanks, Nikhil, and good morning to you all. Good morning to the audience. I'm Vaibhav Pandhari. I represent Voya India. We are a relatively new GCC that started about 4.5 years back. I'm based in Bangalore. I head the technology function at Voya India, and prior to this, I have spent a couple of decades with Infosys, overall about 29 years in the industry. Look forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Jimmy?
Yeah. Thanks, Nikhil. Hi, everyone. I'm Jimmy James. I'm dialing in from Bangalore. I lead innovation and venture capital for Lowe's in India, and I also head Lowe's Meridius. It's a global retail tech commercialization business which is newly launched. Lowe's, as many of you may know, is a Fortune 100 retailer and the world's second largest home improvement company. And our India GCC is over 5,000 people strong, and we are not just a delivery hub anymore. We have evolved into a strategic partner driving transformation, innovation, and technology leadership across the enterprise. So my role sits at the intersection of internal innovation and external ecosystems. I work with teams across Lowe's internally and also with some of the most exciting startups, VCs, and ecosystem partners to solve problems that really matter to the business today. And as a part of the new venture, we're also now collaborating with retailers externally as we commercialize most of our innovations that we have built at Lowe's. So I'm part of this larger mission at Lowe's GCC to evolve to be a true co-innovation partner for our global enterprise. So good to be here.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yash?
So thanks, Nikhil, and hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Yash Vardan Singh, part of NASSCOM, and NASSCOM is the apex body that represents the voice of the $283 billion tech industry. It focuses on making India the global innovation hub for IT services as well. And currently, I hold the position of senior manager at NASSCOM and are part of the team of GCC Industry Initiative. My role focuses on designing and enabling industry initiatives that accelerate the growth of GCCs in India. and I am dialing in from Delhi NCR.
Great. Thank you so much for taking out the time for this discussion. I know we have a very diverse group of panelists today at very different stages of GCCs. Again, award-winning as well as industry practitioners from NASSCOM. So let's dive into the discussion, right? And again, in the recent years, we've seen there is a shift in how GCCs are approaching innovation. Uh, it's no longer limited to labs or niche teams. It's sort of getting integrated into the DNA of everyday operations, becoming more closer to business priorities, and naturally being driven by next generation technologies like platform thinking, artificial intelligence, generative AI, and now agentic AI. Right, Weber, let me start with you. Right, how have you seen the innovation charter evolve over the last 2 to 3 years in the GCC industry?
Yeah, great question, Nikhil. So I'll probably take a step back and look at how GCCs themselves have evolved. So if you see, the GCCs predominantly started coming in big way to India, especially 20 years back, what we called as 1.0 of GCC, more as outposts, starting with development teams, testing efforts, supplementing the parent org teams, right? Then last 10 years, I would say the 2010s decade focused more on COEs, whether it's analytics COE, whether RPA COE, whether Salesforce COE. So the construct was more around capability building. I call it as 2.0. And the current trend is more, and I'll come to that, the 3.0 of GCCs. So by virtue of that, the innovation charter also has evolved, right? From really doing back-end work to creating capabilities through COEs. And now last 2-3 years, the shift is very much that GCCs want to be a strategic business partner for their parent orgs, right? And virtue of that, the innovation charter has completely changed last 2-3 years, as you rightly said. So I'll give you some quick examples. So GCCs are becoming a big R&D hub for their parent ecosystem, right? So a GE actually does a turbine research in India, in GCC in India, right? Similarly, a lot of banks that have GCCs in India, they are actually, from conceptualization to rollout, they are actually innovative payments products, cards products are being launched from GCC, right? Similarly, companies like Adobe, VMware, and even Microsoft, AWS, right? A lot of heavy engineering research is now happening from India. So in a nutshell, things have really matured, and technology at the center of all of this, right? Especially with the advent of generative AI and the progress we have done in cloud computing. So the amount of data that we can really churn to give sharp insights, I think those are the things that companies are adopting to. And in terms of what we are doing at Voya, and I'll quickly tell in a few seconds. So just like Jimmy mentioned, we are a new GCC, so we have gone through this 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 build out, starting small. We have scaled to a 3,000 plus GCC now. My tech team is 1,500 plus, and we have gone through the hoops of creating small capabilities, creating small automation constructs, to now where we have really charted an innovation agenda that looks at the entire enterprise. And today we are focusing on 3 key themes. One, how do we really improve our end customer experience by taking advantage of the new technologies as well as reimagining our digital assets, right? Second, how can we deliver operational efficiencies by simplifying our core enterprise platforms and by bringing intelligent automation, right? And the third I'll call out is actually a big focus on business impact driven intervention. So what I mean is, can we really bring our core business critical platforms and our entire data ecosystem together to solve problems? For example, can we deliver our claims faster? Can we onboard our clients 30% faster, right? Go to market, can we improve? Things like that. So it's a journey, it's a good journey, and we are looking forward to it.
That's great, Vaibhav, and I think very interesting that you spoke about there is a correlation or there is a parallel that can be drawn for innovation with respect to the GCC maturity, right? Different stages that continue to get shaped up after different periods of time, and how at Voya India you have sort of broken it down into 3 key pillars on how innovation charter gets drafted. Jimmy, same question for you. How have you, or what changes have you seen in how GCCs really define or drive innovation in the last 2 to 3 years?
No, sure. Great question. A lot has evolved, I would say. Not too long ago, innovation in most GCCs actually just meant hackathons or idea contests or fancy pilots and demos and isolated POCs. The intent was always good, but there was very little business muscle behind it. Today, that kind of an operating model would not cut it anymore because leaders across the enterprise, they all want results. The competitive landscape is pretty hard, and businesses also want speed, and tech is moving faster and evolving faster than ever. So at Lowe's also, we transitioned from innovation being a side activity to becoming core to how we solve problems. So at Lowe's India, we have also moved from fancy pilots and demos and idea pipelines only to impact pipelines. So, which means we are solving real problems that matter to the business. So, whether it is about internal innovation or we talk about external innovation, which is very, very startup driven, where we are also looking at collaborating with the startup ecosystem, it is all about solving real problems that matter to the business. So, I'll give you an example. Um, there was a there was a challenge that a supply chain teams had flagged, which was related to high cost of appliance damage that we would face as a retailer. We are one of the largest appliance sellers in the US. And most of the times when customers open appliances which are delivered to them, they may find it broken. And we had no visibility into where in the supply chain was this really happening. So we wanted more visibility, more answers, more accountability with our partners as well. So the GCC team here, so we did not just brainstorm internally to come up with some ideas and pilots, but we really partnered with a deep tech startup to co-build an IoT and AI powered solution for us, which is now really solving a multi-million dollar problem for us. So this has saved us millions of dollars annually. There's automated quality checks at scale, and it has also improved partner accountability overall in the supply chain. So that's the kind of shift I'm talking about, from innovation for the sake of innovation to real innovation with business outcomes. And that's how the GCC also starts becoming more and more relevant for the enterprise overall. And the evolution of a GCC to a GIC starts. Also, just taking another small example of a retail checkout platform. So, we have built a hardware agnostic. So, when you go to a retail store, you have the ability to either go to an assistant who can help you check out and finish your purchase journey. But we also have built our own self checkout platform with which is hardware agnostic. We have broken all vendor lock-ins that we were also logged in with a few years back, and now we have integrated much more faster with store ecosystems and all other periphery enterprise tech ecosystems or enterprise technologies. The result of this is that there has been more than a 40% reduction in our total cost of ownership. The innovation cycles are more than 3x faster now. And again, triple digit $1 million value delivered, now being offered to other retailers worldwide as well. So that's what it means to take GCC innovation to the next level, not just internal transformation anymore, but it is also external impact. So yeah, so this is a clear shift from just fancy experimentation to real enterprise grade execution for business impact.
Interesting points, Jenny. I think you're touching a very important now, which is around innovation is not about shiny new tools. We're looking at innovation in a more pragmatic way because understand that GCCs necessarily do not have bottomless pit of funding, right,
Yeah.
to go after everything, right? And you're trying to solve for something which is far more closer to your business at a real challenge. Identifying that, collaborating, and very interestingly, you spoke about how you even worked with a provider or a partner ecosystem to help create a solution that can solve for it. And we will be touching upon some of these things as we progress. Yash, would like to bring you in, right? You have been associated with NASCOM for quite some time, and then you continue to engage with existing and new GCCs. How is the NASCOM seeing the shift or the innovation focus shift across the industry today?
So, thanks, Nikhil. I think I completely echo with my fellow panelists. We are also witnessing a pivotal shift from execution-led models to innovation-led ecosystems. And according to this reports, also like the GCC landscape report, see that 80% of GCCs are now or we can call as innovation hubs. Focus has now shifted.
Yash, I think probably we're not able to. Your
Center
audio
of
seems to be breaking in
excellences
and out.
are inculcating the culture of innovation in GCCs. And in terms of revenue also, if you see, there is a surge from $64.6 billion in financial year 2024. And as per the reports, it is projected to cross close to around 100 billion by 2030. This reflects a strategic evolution from cost centers to innovation partners for global enterprises. And overall, as my fellow panelist also mentioned, we are seeing a strategic focus towards ER&D, digital transformation, AI, and innovation-led solutions. And obviously, this is way beyond the cost efficiency factor. So, and not about cost efficiency.
Got it. And Yash, maybe we could get parts of it towards the end. The initial half we probably couldn't gather, but we understand the sentiment that you were trying to highlight. Uh, let's let's move to something which is equally very important today, right? And then we have to really look at how GCCs are not now being asked, but now mandated to drive business outcomes. And some of those things that Jimmy, Vaibhav, you highlighted around enhancing customer experience, uh, driving revenue growth, maybe from newer products, from existing products, and how well are you able to manage risk uh, very well, more proactively, right? But while the ambition is fairly clear, right? Uh, and then in our conversations, we often see that what proves to be challenging is measuring that impact in a very structured way. And second, making it visible to global stakeholders who may be not necessarily plugged into day-to-day execution, right? Uh, Weber, reflecting on your journey with Voya, right, which again is a relatively newer GCC in India ecosystem, how do you approach demonstrating the business value of innovation when a lot of your long-term outcomes may still be in motion?
Yeah, great point, Nikhil. And honestly, I feel while it's a challenge, it's also a great opportunity, especially for new GCCs like us. So the way we think at Voya India, right? Trust and credibility actually is the first currency that we need to build, right? So we have put a lot of effort in building trust and credibility and a very transparent, open dialogue with our parent talk stakeholders. There is a tendency in GCCs to really do things in silos, as you told before. We have tried to avoid that trap by really linking whatever we do here to our business priorities and business objectives very clearly. So the whole innovation focus in India is on things on the ground that matter, right? So, for example, our CIO actually has he has said many times that innovation need not be a new discovery, right? So we have really focused on what we call as GRI and GRE, grassroots innovation and grassroots efficiency. Everything we do needs to be aligned to the business we serve from the GCC, right? I'll tell how we do it and take a couple of quick examples to explain, right? So we have a 3-point simple framework. One, what is a business outcome we want to achieve through the innovation journey that we are proposing to take, right? Second, what is the early success or early quick win that we can really focus on? Well, that's very important. To your question, unless you have a quick win, early win planned out, it will lose sight and it will fizzle out, right? And third, what is that KPI or the measuring criteria for that early success and long-term success, right? I'll take a couple of examples. So we are in the business of actually helping American citizens retire better, both financially by building their retirement corpus through 401k, 403b kind of products, and helping with employee benefits, taking care of their health side. So we are a B2B to C play. While we support about 15 million customers, we actually sell through employers, right? And it has its own challenges. For example, one industry-wide challenge that anybody in this industry faces is how to onboard large jumbo clients, right? And it is a time-taking process because of the regulatory things involved, because of the way setups are, because of the amount of humongous configurations that are needed and personalizations, customizations needed, right? So the challenge we took about 18 months back, and I'll be honest, this was a joint effort while India team took a lot of lead between US and India, right? The effort was how do we really reduce these timelines by 30%, right? The entire customer onboarding timelines. And the team actually went through series of steps, early POCs as to how can we really bring in simplification, rationalization of the tech life cycle. Similarly, are there quick wins on the business process side? And then we actually evolved into a roadmap that went in an agile fashion, delivering multiple deliverables. Thereby, today we are in a position where we are able to onboard 50% more AUM, we call it, assets under management, 50% more AUMs in the same timelines. We are able to onboard a new jumbo client 30% faster. And these are the business benefits in a structured innovation roadmap we are able to deliver. Another quick example I'll take is the way we have built our RPA practice, right? And RPA has been around for a while, so no new thing in that. But what mandate we have given to RPA team is uh, really work very closely with our operations team, and we are lucky that both tech and operations sit in GCC under one roof. They work closely, they come up with ideas, and we have really incentivized both the teams to come up with tangible ideas on the ground. There is a proper CBA, cost benefit analysis, and every idea is vetted through a tight governance, but also with a lot of flair for innovation. Let's not limit to RPA. Can we throw in a Python scripting alongside RPA? Can we now bring in GenAI or agentic AI approaches along with RPA to solve a larger problem? So by doing all this, what we have delivered last 18, 20 months is a 15% FTE reduction. People have been repurposed. More importantly, we have actually made life easy for end customers by solving painstaking high value processes like annual enrollment, like claims processing, right? Like regulatory reporting. We automated a lot of this that has really given a tangible shift in benefits to internal as well as external customers. And that has actually set us on a path of larger innovations by instilling the early confidence, giving a clear view to the leadership in the parent org that they can trust with the GCC that this team will deliver on the promises. There are measures that tell us whether we are on the right track or not, and go ahead. That's how I'll sum it. Nikhil.
Uh, Great examples, Vaibhav. I think I can resonate some of them because I myself come from banking and financial services and insurance industry. How you've gone about increasing the AUM? How have you
Yeah.
started handling large and jumbo accounts, which at times can be a contention of how
Okay.
GCCs are equipped to handle that, right? So really interesting, and how you're bringing through a bouquet of technology capabilities, right? Not RPA, but AI and all of it to help drive that motion. Jimmy, let me ask you a similar question, but in a different way, because from your experience, right, and I understand that Lowe's has been around for over a decade now in India. What types of impact tend to resonate most with enterprise leaders, and how have you made that impact visible and sustain that over time?
Yeah, sure. Great question, but also a tricky question because we are clear about one thing now with having been here for more than a decade in India and now literally doing a lot more or contributing a lot more to the global headquarters in the area of innovation. We know one thing for clear that impact now needs to be felt both on the ground and should also be seen in the boardroom. Because to be honest, and leaders today don't just care about how many pilots did you run last quarter, how many POCs were done with any startups, or what are the new ideas that you're working on. You're just doing some pilots. These are all fancy dashboards and fancy points that once upon a time used to buy us more time, but not anymore. So everyone and leaders care about how innovation is helping reduce cost or grow revenue, or how is it helping us improve margins, or is it helping us build a competitive edge. Problem statements and innovation is very business case driven now, and once you say it's business case driven, then the impact is also accordingly measured and reported. So at Lowe's India, we focus on two types of impact. The first is quantifiable impact, whether it is operational efficiency gains or revenue growth or things like shrink reduction using AI. The revenue lift through retail media monetization or frontline productivity improvement, etc. These are examples of quantifiable impacts. The second is strategic impact, that how is this innovation helping us improve time to value to customers, customer experience improvement? Is it strengthening our overall tech posture? Is this innovation helping us shape a roadmap and so on? So we measure both quantifiable as well as the strategic impacts. Giving you an example, like I mentioned about a retail checkout solution, it wasn't just a technology win for us. It broke vendor lock-ins, it accelerated store rollouts, and it drove serious cost and performance gains for us, which were measured. And that's how now we can, in hindsight, say from the total cost of ownership reduction of 30-40% to everything else, the what has the overall impact been, and now we are commercializing it and taking it to external markets and partners through this new company called as Meridius. So at the same time, we are also collaborating with startups, where we measure success not just with how many conversations we had or how many POCs did we do, because corporates are very famous for doing a lot of POCs with a lot of startups, but it eventually ends up nowhere. So the way we measure success when we work or collaborate with the startup ecosystem is how many scale ups have we done, and what is the overall business impact, how many solutions have really gone into production. So that's how we measure the overall impact, and this is where we collaborate very closely with both tech and business stakeholders, and also the ecosystem players, because today you can't build conviction at the C level without consistently tying innovation to business priorities. You have also mentioned it. And to sustain impact, then we don't just report some of these metrics, but we also have these frequent storytelling sessions where, along with metrics, where we talk about what is the impact at an organizational level and how are we making the organization future ready. So each quarter we share our impact stories across leadership. It's not just impact reports, but impact stories across the leadership. We show what has moved, what have we learned, and how is it scaling. And we also align with business unit leaders and tech stakeholders to review what has worked, what did not work, and what actually scaled, and what is the impact. At the same time, once an innovation is rolled out, we also track engagement metrics. That is very, very critical. That was also something that we learned, that it is not just important for you to roll out an innovation or scale something, but you also have to track adoption and engagement as to how many business units have really adopted these innovation-led solutions, how many ideas did really scale over time, not just, okay, it started scaling now, but is it still existing after the next year or 2 years, 3 years down the line, and what was the overall ROI that was realized. So visibility in that way, and I would say executive sponsorship and visibility is created through strong storytelling, data-backed business cases, and that's how we also win executive alignment across the enterprise.
Interesting, very, very interesting points, Jimmy. I think you touched upon a number of items. One towards the end, which is storytelling, and I think what we understand and what we have gone through in GCC case studies, everybody is doing a phenomenal work in their space, right? But at times there is this art of storytelling, and some of the practices that you have clearly articulated, which is doing it on a quarterly basis, which showcases that there is a proactive motion. What you're also sort of grounding yourself is what this is what's working, this is not what's working, right? So just also sort of highlighting that if other teams need to adopt, then they may need to be cognizant of those pitfalls to watch, right? And naturally, how is this getting scaled and adopted by different entities, different business stakeholders? So very, very interesting. Yash, would like to understand from you, right? In your interactions, in your conversations, how are the leading GCCs really defining innovation success today, right? Are you also seeing a shift towards more outcome-linked business-aligned metrics? I know Jimmy leaned onto some of them, but what are you picking up?
Yes, absolutely, Nikhil. We are seeing a strong shift towards business aligned and outcome driven innovation. And I would like to quote an example, like many of the leading GCCs are measuring success through various matrices like revenue contribution, patent filing, speed to market, and real time product impact. And we have also seen an emerging trend, especially in the mid market GCCs. Now they are acting as a global product innovation hub and aligning closely with the enterprises, global enterprises. In terms of KPI perspective, also we have seen that they have moved beyond efficiency and now more focused on value creation, where innovation is obviously linked to tangible success outcomes. So I would like to reiterate, which my fellow panelists are also mentioned, that new matrices are now their focus. GCCs are now focusing on new matrices for their outcome, which is for innovation, like revenue stream, patent filing, time to market, and product impact.
Got it. Interesting, Yash. I think what you're also leaning on is that cost metrics have become fairly BAU hygiene today. Some GCCs, even we know, that do not report it. It doesn't mean that it's not important, but it's just that the focus is more shifting towards the KPIs now aligning to what the KPIs matter to the enterprise today. What they are tracking versus what you are tracking, because value articulation becomes extremely important in that case. Before I dive into the next segment, right, we spoke about different things, but what is it that GCCs or any lessons on what they should not do when it comes down to showcasing value? Again, an open question for our panelists today.
Okay, I can go first.
Sure.
I think the first point that I would try to, and something that I always keep sharing with my team as well, is that don't just look innovative, be valuable. So, which means that we should not confuse activity with impact. So, a lot of times, and I've seen this with a lot of organizations, that they usually have the reports and dashboards, again, full of POCs and pilots, until someone stops and asks, so what? So, what if you're doing 20 pilots? So, what if you're doing 10 pilots? So, 10 pilots or 100 pilots mean nothing if none of these are really solving a business pain or the business problem. So solve problems that are worth solving. It's number one. And number two is stop measuring and reporting everything. That's also something I've seen. We have, when we were trying to create these quarterly and monthly reports now, the team would try to just flood the report with so many metrics and so on. But it's again a learning, and I'm sharing this with all of you, that focus on what really matters to your stakeholders and your sponsors, because that will build trust and confidence that you are also aligned the way the organization thinks, and that alignment is very, very strong for your credibility.
Great articulation, Jimmy. My 2 cents, Nikhil, if that's okay. I'll just say what we have also similar thoughts, Jimmy. What we have done is we have this promise versus payoff thinking, right? Don't run after the new tech without really looking at it in the context of your business that you're servicing. Does it really make sense to spend $500,000, and what is the ROI expected, right? So don't hurry to run after the newer shiny technology in the market. Do your due diligence of promise versus payoff. Second, I'll say it's important to have the steer codes and OKRs, the objectives and key results, but equally focus on the creation of an innovation culture, which needs a little more softer aspects, which we'll talk in due course in this discussion.
Yeah. And just to complete that one point, that you just mentioned, Vaibhav, so we should not treat innovation as a tech-first exercise. It must be a problem-first, business-aligned, and a user-centered exercise, I think. So that's where these shiny new technologies should not really push us into, okay, let's innovate, but it should be a problem-driven
problem-solving mindset.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Got it. Great points. Vaibhav, there is a question for you. So the question is, do you believe that new age GCCs have a better opportunity with Jumpstart, as they start with a clean slate and no baggage of legacy? Interesting one.
Yeah, there's like saying EVs have a edge over the normal IC engine diesel petrol cars, right? No, I think great question. So it depends on how you think. I personally, having been part of a newer GCC, we at Voya India have taken that mindset that we will learn from the likes of Jimmy. In our ecosystem, we have Fidelity and Empower and people in financial industry like Goldman and Barclays. They have been around for a while. So we have tried to learn a few things. But I personally feel newer or existing GCC should not matter as long as the basic constructs that we have been talking here are in place, right? Like go deeper into your business, look at how you want to problem solve or create opportunities and point of views to take your business forward. Back it with the structural things, and I'll not take the thunder from the next set of discussions we are going to have. But yes, there is obvious advantage where you don't have a lot of legacy luggage of some past successes and failures, but you also have a lot of things as a new GCC to do, right? And I think it's important to have that clear idea of what problem for business you want to solve and how we want to solve, and what are the early measure of success that we talked, and then the journey takes care of itself. This is how I'll answer.
Got it. Jimmy, there is a question, and I think you were leaning onto it, which is how are service providers powering innovation in GCCs? Rather, let's extend that to the ecosystem players, startups, academia, service providers.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So this is where a shift in the mindset comes in, where see, we were as GCCs a set of amazing and to build a lot ourselves. But what we have realized is in today's age of tech disruption, time to value is very, very critical and important. So can we build everything in-house? Yes, we can absolutely. But do we want to do it? That's the question that we constantly keep asking. And this is where the build versus buy, we have just changed it to a build plus buy and a co-innovation kind of a model. So this is where we are kind of very clear as to what is really, really core to us in-house, and we want to really build it. But at the same time, we are very open to external collaboration now, where we know that if there are service providers and if there are some great product and technology startups building something that could give us a leap to say by 2 to 3 years or even a year in today's time, that's great from a partnership point of view. And that's why this program called as Catalyze was launched by the GCC here, where there is a external innovation now which always keeps looking at the new age startups and service providers across the globe. And we keep looking at, hey, what is the value that they can bring to us? So we are very, very open to doing this. And this is the way almost all GCCs are also evolving now, where instead of thinking build versus buy, we are thinking of build plus buy, and how can service providers augment our innovation internally so that we are able to accelerate the time to impact for our customers.
Thanks, Jimmy. Vaibhav. What we'll do now is we'll probably dive into some of the key findings that came up from the latest edition of GCC Awards, NASSCOM GCC Awards, focusing on innovation category, right? And then maybe we'll use that as a thread to further discuss more on other areas which we are also picking up in our comment section right now. So for everyone who may have seen this, as part of the whole NASSCOM GCC Awards, our endeavor is to make sure that the learnings from the whole awards are shared with the broader community. What are some of those trailblazers or leading GCCs in that particular category, and how are they differentiating themselves from the rest of the pack, right? We'll just focus on a few areas where we saw that differentiation becoming fairly clear. First, I think if you were to start with the role of GCCs in Enterprise Innovation Charter, right? What's really defining the trailblazers today is their own outcomes, they drive agenda, they're accountable for outcomes, right? They don't have only seat at the table, or they are not reviewing the menu. They're also thinking what part of that menu, what gets moved, what gets prioritized, right? So thinking about prioritizing innovation bets. So that's clearly there. And naturally, right, through this, we end up seeing a model where there is a faster iteration, better contextualization, things that we just picked up from our panelists today. But the second area where we are also seeing structure of innovations teams in GCCs, right? What seems to be fairly common is many of them have adopted a hybrid team structure. So you have a combination of central and decentralized teams. Our belief is that the innovation cannot just reside in a central area, right? It needs to breathe across business functions, units, technology today, right? Naturally, through this model, there is a lot of global, local synergy play that can get accomplished. Uh, and towards the end, we spoke about business outcomes, and we spoke about all the three elements, right? The key impact areas. What we have seen trailblazers, how they are differentiating themselves is, yes, everybody is sort of delivering value, but the quantum of that value is varying. Trailblazers tend to generate at least 4 times higher ROI to other enterprises. If you were to look at operational metrics, there's at least a 30% higher improvement that we see in all of the process SLAs. Uh, and third, there is a higher, I would say, value capture that comes through NPS improvements, product success, faster speed to market, and naturally the employee satisfaction. Now, I'm talking about employee satisfaction right now, and this is probably would be a good segue for us to delve into something which we haven't discussed in detail, right? Which is culture. Uh, Now, whether you're starting out or running a well-established setup, one thing is clear: innovation tends to work when people feel free to question the status quo. There is scope for risk-taking ability. You're trying to bring new ideas into day-to-day work, right? Uh, Jimmy, you mentioned some breakthrough ideas, success stories. Vaibhav, you highlighted how you are approaching your innovation strategy through three pillars, right? But that spirit of innovation year after year is a altogether a different challenge, right? Jimmy, starting with you, right? What has really helped you cultivate and sustain that innovation mindset over the years? Because again, we understand that there is always a risk of plateauing, stagnation, which is common today. How do you keep that momentum going?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll be preaching to the choir here when I say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, especially when it comes to innovation. And innovation dies when it's only owned by a few. So, also as per your report, that's where the hybrid team structure really comes and helps. And so we have also worked really hard to embed the innovation mindset across the teams in a sustainable fashion. So I'll just take a few examples of some of the activities that we do so that it really brings this to action. So example number one, for internal innovation especially, we have launched something called as Idea Tank. It is our internal Shark Tank. So associates here pitch ideas, and yeah, we don't just clap for them, but we also, to be honest, fund these ideas, mentor these associates and ideas. So this is the spirit of entrepreneurship. So the thought was that if we are ready to fund external startups, so today at Catalyze we also have an external fund where we fund global startups, and then we also become customers to some of these startups and service providers as well. So when we are so inclined towards supporting folks in the external ecosystem, we thought, why not really bring this internally as well? So that's how we launched Idea Tank. And this is an year-long activity with quarterly cohorts. And so we fund, mentor some of these associates and ideas. And this really grassroots innovation with executive backing. So that's one which really drives internal innovation across the board. And then we also host a series of quarterly events called as Innovation Exchange. Now, this is an outside-in view where it's a curated startup showcase inside Lowe's, where we bring the entire startup ecosystem to Lowe's and open it up to all the 5,000 plus associates, where we have these startups they have booths and they spend an entire day at Lowe's showcasing their products. We have masterclasses, panel discussions, and we have the top venture capital partners and hyperscalers and leaders all coming and spending an entire day. So this creates an outside-in view, and it also breaks any silos and bubbles, because we may be thinking that we are innovating and we are the best, but when we have these outside players, external players come in and showcase, that really also humbles us sometimes, and helps us understand that, okay, maybe someone else has, we look at AI startups or generative AI startups. Are we doing something? Yes, but maybe somebody has done much better, and there is a possibility of partnership and learning from there. So that's number two. Then we also run reverse pitch sessions where business leaders would bring their biggest challenges and problem statements to us, and then we bring in ecosystem partners to co-solve and co-innovate some of these business problems. And the last one is that, of course, we do a lot of pilots, and some of these pilots may fail. So when it does, we don't hide it. We don't hide it as the last line in a report, but we usually share what we learned and why it may have saved us future effort or future costs. So that psychological safety is also powerful. So we have also kind of broken the stigma around failure, because this experimentation is also teaching us something. And that is also the same mindset that we have taken to our corporate venture capital arm, where we also invest with the focus on strategic investments and not financially driven investments. So yeah, that's the mindset that has helped us in some sort of a leadership modeling, where now leaders are asking, what did we try this quarter that did not work? So when we can open it, because that kind of a question, that's really a powerful reminder, or I would say a signal of how your culture is evolving overall.
Very well articulated, Jimmy. Some great best practices that you're sharing here. Vaibhav, let me put it to you, right? What are some of those intentional steps that you have taken to build a mindset of innovation across the team? And how are you sort of balancing risk taking and experimentation while still earning trust?
Yeah, and then that part is important, still earning trust, right, Nikhil? So, Jimmy, again, great segue, and I'll just continue that story. So, what we have done at Voya India is we have looked at this with two aspects. One, what are the structural things needed in place to create, to really accelerate the creation of that culture, right? So, just like Jimmy said, we have a internal ideas portal, a very democratic setup. Reason I say democratic is it's run by the teams on the ground. So first half of the year we had about 75 ideas that were vetted by leads on the ground first, then it came to the leadership. So top 10 ideas are culled out. 3 of those are getting into execution now, the remaining 7 are in the pipeline. And what we do for this setup is this is tied to our rewards and recognition program, where innovation is a big part of it. And the third thing we do, just like some of you called out earlier, is the showcase part, right? The storytelling showcase part. So we use the CXO visits, and we are fortunate that our parent talk CXOs visit us very often. Every quarter, at least some leader comes. So we use those to really showcase these on the ground innovations. We give teams the chance to come and talk to the CXO. So that has kind of created a culture of virtuous cycle of really going after new ideas and all. That's one part, right? That's a structural part. More importantly, what's the softer part of creating that culture that you asked, Nikhil Rowe? So entrepreneurship is one of our 3 important EVPs, employee value propositions. But it's one thing to put it on the boards in the tech parks or everywhere, and actually other to practice, right? So I'll take a quick recent example. So this was in a nice Madikeri Kurg setup in a offsite, where a couple of our US CXOs actually threw a complex claims processing related problem at us and said, can you do something about it? And when we came back to office, the early discussions with 4 or 5 of the core members was, this looks very difficult, Vaibhav, and this may not be solvable through technology, right? But we have tried to create a culture here which is more like, okay, let's trust each other's strength. Let's go at it and see if we can get some tangible results. It may not solve all 100% of the problem, but can we trust each other and get going? So we created 2-week sprints, and we got tech and ops together. Within tech, we had one architect and a couple of SMEs and one leader working through, right? Now, when we started looking at it, we said, okay, the core systems can do maybe 20% of the problem solving. Maybe we need to rethink the whole problem and bring a customer behavior into picture and give more a self-help to even avoid the occurrence of a problem itself at the source, right? How the person is approaching claim submission, right? And the third, we said, okay, this may not have been possible couple of years back, but now we have a GenAI agentic AI setup. Can we really throw some trials at it? And now this was a time box 2 months exercise, Nikhil, and now we are at a stage where the same team that initially was not sure has actually run 3 different GenAI POCs, giving fabulous returns, has also given recommendations on the core claims platform changes needed, and the self-help part that I talked. All of this is going into live in next 2 months, phase by phase, and that's given a phenomenal confidence to US ecosystem leaders as well as to us in India that look, the real part that we just talked, right? The ability to really solve end-to-end business problem by holistically thinking and not by just having a cookie cutter approach of RPA or one solution. That is the culture we have tried to set up. I'll just take a couple of quick points. Second thing we have done intentionally, as you use the word intentional, right? Community of practices. We have actually created a few community of practices run by our developers on the ground, team leads on the ground, especially on new tech areas, whether it's data science, whether it's AI, Gen AI, and likes, and that is creating a lot of positive. Third last point I'll say is the leadership plays a very, very critical role in creating that culture that Jimmy also said. It's okay to fail, right? It's okay to fail. We are there to back you. I think leadership plays a huge role, and I'm glad we have a very mature leadership both in our parent of Voya Financials in US as well as in India. I'll end this by saying, by quoting my boss, my CEO. She always says, look team, the volume to value journey is important, and the steps are equally important in between. And other things she focuses on is learning and development is not an enabling function, it's a core part of our strategy, right? It's a core part of why we exist. So that's a kind of culture we have tried to create. Early days, Nikhil, still, but the early vibes are really encouraging.
Very, very well put, Vaibhav. I think reflecting on some of the things that you spoke about, how L&D has becoming more institutionalized in your culture today, just not like an activity.
Yeah.
And then the way you have spoken about empowering your teams because the success is clearly measured. Again, we used to be in a time when the work was thrown over the wall. Now
Yeah.
those lines have become fairly blurred. Everybody is fairly close. The performance philosophy seems to be more aligned today. So
Yeah.
interesting. Yash, would like to bring you in, right? Again, important to understand how are you seeing some of the cultural levers or programs that's really helping GCCs drive innovation across teams?
Sure, great question, Nikhil. I think I completely resonate with my fellow panelists. This is what that emerging trend we have seen in the industry, across the industry as well. So innovation is now a culture, not a function. GCCs are obviously nurturing it through various levers. Like some of my fellow panelists also mentioned that entrepreneurial programs are one of the lever which we see for nurturing this culture of innovation in GCCs, followed by focus on creating of center of excellences that are encouraging experimentation, and obviously followed by leadership decentralization, especially enabling teams for agility and ownership at all levels. Along with that, GCCs are also fostering a culture of startups. So they are focusing on hackathons, co-creation of labs, and also embedding emerging technologies in their day-to-day problem-solving activities also. So hence we see that the role of ecosystem learning, agile teams, and upskilling are the key cultural drivers in GCCs currently.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you for summarizing that well. Uh, I'll move on to the last segment. And this is where the focus shifts a bit more on going 0 to 1 and 1 to 100, right? Which is more around structure and scale up today. Now we recognize that we'll have funding models to stakeholder alignment to working with ecosystem partners. How the GCC structure themselves becomes very important to take innovation from a conceptual or ideation phase to an impact creation. Jimmy, I'll try to ask you, how are you balancing structure and agility when scaling innovation? So what models, mechanisms have worked for you? I know you answered parts of it in your previous responses, but if you were to look at a structure standpoint, what has worked really well? What mechanisms have helped you move quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I think innovation needs both structure and agility, and too much structure could kill creativity, and lack of structure could create chaos. And I think we have learned through our experience as to what could work. And what we have realized is, of course, see, at the top, you need to have the leadership buy-in and the leadership alignment between the GCC leaders as well as the headquarter leaders. And I think, again, as Vaibhav also mentioned, grateful to our leadership here as well, that they are driving this top down, and there is a mindset of putting the company first and the business impact first, whether it comes from here or from the headquarters. So what we have found success in is the hub and spoke model, just to be a little more specific. So say the innovation team, the central innovation team would act as a hub, curating startups, running pilots, governing a lot of pilots and scale-ups in collaboration with tech and business. But then you also have the spoke. Every spoke could be this function, which could be, say, a product or supply chain or merchandising or the AI COP or any of these. They also own their innovation charters and they own the execution as well. So in tandem, the hub and spoke kind of take care of exploration, incubation, and the scale up of these pilots as well. At the same time, we also have something that is more like a venture capital like innovation stack of how the startup ecosystem works, and we have taken the cues from there. So and that also works with our corporate venture capital arm. So there is a deal flow coming from the startup ecosystems, and I'm using the word startups very loosely here. These could be early stage, mid stage, and even late stage. So other than the deal flow, then there is a POC capital. So the innovation team then holds a budget, a central budget to fund fast pilots in collaboration with tech and business as well. And then there is a scale-up council where leaders will review pilots and greenlight rollouts and so on. And when I talk about leadership buy-in, I should talk about, say, a best practice that we do. At a monthly level, there is something called as an external tech investment committee where we usually come together to go through and understand the startup pipeline or the pipeline or service providers, what innovation can they bring in, and then we review how can we collaborate, is there a possibility to co-innovate, co-create, and so on. So that's the leadership bandwidth being put into looking at what is available outside of what we are doing. So this constant learning and mindset and the execution in the hub and spoke kind of keeps us going. So and one of the biggest unlock for us was also treating experiments as investments and not costs, and that's where the innovation team now has a central POC budget as well. So that mindset also kind of helped us shift from, or I would say, build long-term partnerships with tech firms and not just short-term vendor contracts and just POCs. And if you're going to many POCs, we're successful. So that's the kind of structure that's really helping us innovate really well with agility.
Nicely put. Vaibhav, how do you spoke about not just looking at long outcomes, but even focusing on early wins, because that's very important to showcase value, visibility, empowering teams. But how do you turn that into a scalable, sustainable solution?
Yeah, Nikhil. So as you say, rightly said, early wins are important. That actually creates a virtuous cycle. It creates a momentum, gives a confidence to the whole ecosystem. So what we have done beyond that is we have pivoted to an innovation agenda that is completely rooted in the everyday work that our teams do, right? And we have approached it with 2-3 levers. One, how do we really shift mindset of our teams, right? So it's very important that in a GCC you understand your business and processes, business products very deep. For example, in our business, while we serve 15 million customers, if we bring a new digital intervention, if we bring a new digital journey, it's easy to correlate these 15 million customers, but how does it relate to our broker ecosystem? How does it relate to our advisor ecosystem? What are the different personas involved, right? And holistically understand that business. So we are encouraging teams to go beyond the tech work or ops process they are managing and really understand the business products and business flows deep, right? Second, to do this, we have actually created some subject matter expert programs. So as we speak, we are actually creating 20 subject matter experts on a retirement as well as employee benefit side. These people are given a differentiated career path. There is a 2-year roadmap where every quarter there are from what knowledge units they need to understand to what are the things they need to learn over this long journey. It's curated, and between our parent US org and us, together we drive this, right? So creating SMEs, in my opinion, is central to any innovation that GCC can aspire to do, because if you don't have the business understanding, if you don't have the expertise, your innovations remain limited to the tech part of it and doesn't really impact the business outcome that we all talk, right? That's the second part I'll say. Third part that I'll say is some things that we have really taken at a overall GCC ecosystem level, right? So for what we have done is, while we have had some good early successes, now can we really look at the whole enterprise as a whole, look at from Salesforce CRM systems to core platforms to technology horizontals and the businesses that we support holistically, and come with a charter for each area, right? To your point, how do you scale it? I'll give a couple of quick examples. One, in all this, data is really central. I mean, while people say data is new oil and all, if you ask any CIO what is the biggest pain point, they'll say data is my pain point, because Gen AI, agentic AI, all the shiny new things are good, but even digital journeys, right? But if your underlying data is broken, none of this will work, right? So we have actually put enormous focus on getting our data right and created initiatives around it, right? Like, how do you get your enterprise data quality right so that when a Salesforce tries to cross-sell your products to a prospective customer, the data really is clean and nice and it's easy, right? So data being at central, we have looked at themes around enterprise data management. We also looked at themes around data science, and some of it I think Jimmy touched upon. Like, we are looking at a combination of agentic AI, data science, and Gen AI. We have initial 17, 18 odd curated use cases that focus on either a revenue impact, how can we really retain customer or attract customers kind of use cases, or operational efficiency, how can we really use agentic AI to reduce our call center churn, our call center costs, or similar claims processing or other processor costs. Third, how can we really innovate using a combination of data science, AI, right? That kind of a approach. Similar approach is taken on our core systems, right? Core platforms. What do these core systems, what is the next good for them? And each of these leaders and their teams are encouraged to come with a 2-year plan. So taking a 360 full stack approach of innovation, if I may call it, go into every business and technology team and do. Last thing, and I'll really give this as a practical tip to teams that are attending this today, right? One thing that has really worked for us, something innovative we started doing about 3 quarters back, is create 4 weeks cross-functional pod, 4 weeks time-bound pods to really solve the biggest problems that your customers face today. So we have done 3 so far to deal with our digital customer complaints, as well as our other high value customer complaints. What it does is, it, as I did, it looks very simple. Bring tech, ops, infra, application support, application management, architects, everybody together, 4 weeks go. What it is forcing with this 4 weeks window is really look at the customer problem with a 360 lens, using each other's strength. It forces teams, given the time constraints and pressure, to look at what are the new ways of solving. It could be a methodology change, it could be a new technology being brought, or it could be reimagining the whole business process supporting itself, right? So that time box 4-week pod has actually generated a tremendous interest within the community in India as well as in US, and that is propelling innovation. So Nikhil, long story short, early days, but what we have tried to do is really democratize the innovation across the entire life cycle of business that we deal with, and taking you from the future part, each one has a roadmap, and then how do we go about running it, right? Only one thing I'll say, one thing we haven't done, it's in the list, and US teams do this well, is how do we really use the startup ecosystem for an innovation. Something I picked from you, Jimmy, today, and I'll catch up with you offline to see how we can do that. Thank you.
Fantastic, Vaibhav, and lot of on-ground experiences that you're sharing, some practices for the audience that are dialing in. And then you spoke about startup, right? And where, Yash, this is where I want to bring you in. how are you seeing GCCs collaborating with ecosystem? I know there are some questions that have come in the chat group, but you may probably share more from industry lens.
Absolutely, Nikhil. So we have seen this emerging trend coming up in GCCs that a lot of convergence is happening between GCCs, startups, academia, and policy. And obviously, this open innovation model has been driving the real impact in the Indian GCC ecosystem. For instance, a mid-market GCC which has collaborated with a startup and which was an IIT incubated startup to develop a predictive maintenance solution. And it has resulted in the reduction of downtime by 30%, proving both scale and capability of collaboration between the GCCs and the startup. So we are seeing the trend that over 70% of GCCs are now engaged with either with startups or with maybe with academia for partnerships, turning POCs into enterprise grade products at space. And lot of collaboration is happening across all these domains. So as the ecosystem matures, we will see that lot of collaboration happening and lot of new solutions coming up in the GCC ecosystem, which are obviously business linked and outcome driven.
Got it. Yash, you spoke about it, and for our viewers, two things. As we start off this LinkedIn Live series of putting spotlight on the award-winning GCCs, our next session is going to be on the talent, which is scheduled on 24th of July. It's again, you can see the link that displays at the bottom where we're talking about skills of tomorrow and today. And then naturally, we'll also have other subsequent LinkedIn Live series on topics around ecosystem partnership, which Yash mentioned. But wrapping up, I have one question for our panelists, right? Yash, Jimmy, maybe one thing that you could have done differently in your journey, right, from your personal experience. What would that have been?
Okay. If I have to do it all over again, I would be more ruthless in prioritization of problem statements. So we follow a management consulting kind of an approach in understanding problem statements inside out. What are the biggest priorities or the biggest problem statements for the organization? And then we also try to go outside in, learn from the external ecosystem to see, can we do something better that somebody else is doing? And oftentimes, when we are trying to build stakeholder alignment and relationships, there may be pressure on us that somebody may push one of their hobby projects on us saying that, hey, this is priority. And we would end up doing a POC and so on, and it would never see the light of the day after the POC. And this is where it's a lesson that we have learned, and then we've also inculcated that we need to ruthlessly prioritize every project that we take or we pursue has to be business case driven, and it has to be worth solving. So that's something that we are doing better now.
Great. Vaibhav?
Yeah, I think similar thoughts, Nikhil. So the journey has been great, to be honest, so far. But if there is one thing I would want to change, maybe we started this tech and ops collaboration about 12, 15 months back. I would have started that from day one, because there is so much to learn from my own counterparts here who are using the products that we develop from a tech standpoint. I think that would help solve the problems that matter a lot earlier. So that's one thing. The second thing I'll call out is what I said earlier, getting in outside in view with insurtechs, fintechs, agritechs, and use some of those constructs to accelerate our journey of innovation.
Fantastic. I know we went slightly overboard, but I wanted to really thank Jimmy, Vaibhav, Yash for A, taking out the time for this discussion, B, making this discussion enriching, sharing practical experiences, challenges as well for our audience who are very actively trying to understand and solve for their innovation challenges today. I know there are a lot of questions that we tried to answer, some through conversation, some through directly picking it up. But we'll try to get back to you offline. Me and the panelists will be happy to take up those questions offline. But again, thank you so much for it, and really appreciate this conversation, this dialogue. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thanks,
Hey, everyone.
Nikhil. Thank you, everyone.